Singapore's transformation from a corruption-plagued post-colonial state to a global economic powerhouse is often cited as a rare success story. At independence, corruption was deeply entrenched in public services, customs, and licensing. However, Singapore's leadership reframed corruption as an existential threat, not just a moral failing. Embedded anti-corruption efforts into a broader development strategy, making clean governance a prerequisite for attracting investment and building public trust. The Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau (CPIB) became the cornerstone of this system, reporting directly to the Prime Minister and empowered with sweeping investigative powers. But Singapore's approach went beyond enforcement. It included meritocratic civil service recruitment, competitive public sector salaries, and transparent procurement processes. These measures, combined with a culture of accountability and certainty of punishment, created a virtuous cycle where clean government fueled economic growth and stability. Contrast, Egypt faces a far more complex landscape. Corruption in Egypt is not just transactional but deeply structural, woven into the relationships between political power, security institutions, state-owned enterprises, and private capital. Military-linked enterprises operate with regulatory advantages and limited scrutiny, blurring the lines between regulator and market participant. Civic space is constrained, and while digitalization and administrative reforms have started, enforcement remains selective and perceptions of impunity persist. The dominance of state and military-linked firms creates acute corruption risks, including regulatory asymmetry and conflicts of interest. Unlike Singapore, Egypt's SOEs often lack independent audits and competitive procurement, and financial disclosures are partial or unavailable. These factors undermine credibility and deter investment, making governance reform both urgent and challenging. Core lesson from Singapore is not to copy institutions, but to internalize a disciplined logic, credibility, sequencing, and state capacity before ambition. Singapore's reforms succeeded because they were credible, policies were consistent, rules were enforced, and exceptions were rare. Early reforms focused on administrative efficiency and growth, building trust and fiscal space for more difficult changes later. Egypt adaptation means starting with feasible reforms, such as customs efficiency and digital licensing, before tackling politically sensitive issues like subsidy rationalization or land reform. Institutional insulation, performance discipline, and social inclusion are essential. Egypt's path must be principle-driven, not template-driven, focusing on building credibility, aligning incentives, and protecting reform agencies from short-term political pressure. Ultimately, adaptation is a process, not an event, and success will depend on sustained, context-specific change rather than wholesale replication. Singapore's economic success was not just about suppressing corruption. It was about integrating governance, macroeconomic discipline, industrial policy, and social inclusion into a coherent growth strategy. Public housing, land policy, and development finance were all leveraged to stabilize society, mobilize savings, and support long-term investment. State acted as a pragmatic coordinator, rewarding performance and maintaining openness to foreign investment, but always with clear expectations for technology transfer and skills upgrading. For Egypt, the implication is clear. Anti-corruption reforms must be embedded within a visible growth strategy that delivers jobs, affordable housing, and reliable services. Citizens are more likely to support discipline when it is linked to rising living standards. Egypt's adaptation journey will be gradual and must focus on building institutions that fit its unique context while adhering to universal principles of credibility and long-termism.